The world outside never stopped. Cars honked, people shouted, notifications pinged, and yet, in the midst of it all, there was a voice that remained unheard, his own. Ethan had spent years chasing the noise, believing that success, happiness, and purpose were measured in the echoes of the crowd. He filled his life with constant movement, achievements, conversations, and distractions. But at the end of every day, when the lights dimmed and the streets grew quiet, he found himself alone with a gnawing emptiness he could not name. It was a Friday evening when the realization hit him with unexpected force. He was in his office, surrounded by accolades, awards, and contracts that promised fortune, and yet he felt hollow. The silence of the office, usually drowned by the hum of electronics, felt like a mirror reflecting the emptiness he carried within. Ethan closed his eyes and, for the first time in years, listened, not to the world, but to himself. At first, all he heard was a jumble of thoughts, complaints, doubts, and fears. His mind was a storm, a torrent of unfinished business and memories of mistakes that weighed heavier with each passing day. But as he let the noise settle, as he allowed himself the uncomfortable stillness, something began to emerge. A whisper, faint and fragile, but unmistakably his own. This whisper asked a simple question: "Who are you?" when no one is watching. Ethan realized that he had been living for others, responding to expectations, chasing recognition, but never truly connecting with the person he was beneath the surface. The thought was both terrifying and liberating. For the first time, he felt the stirrings of self-discovery, the call to explore the quiet within. The next morning, Ethan made a decision that surprised even him. He turned off his phone, walked away from his computer, and left the city for a place where the world's noise could not reach him. He drove for hours until he found himself at the edge of a forest, where trees stood tall like silent sentinels, and the only sound was the rustle of leaves in the wind. He had no plan, no agenda, no expectations, only the intention to be alone with himself. The first days were the hardest. Silence, he discovered, was not an absence, but a presence. In the absence of distractions, he became painfully aware of his fears, regrets, and insecurities. Memories of past failures surfaced, old wounds ached, and he questioned every choice that had led him here. He felt restless, uncomfortable, and uncertain, but he persisted. Because he understood that growth was never born from comfort. It was forged in moments of confrontation with oneself. One evening, sitting by a quiet stream, Ethan reflected on a lesson he had learned the hard way: that life often confuses motion with progress. He realized he had been running in circles, busy with tasks and achievements, yet never moving toward understanding, toward meaning. In that quiet, he began to ask himself different questions, not, "What should I achieve?" or "What will others think of me?" but "What do I truly care about?" and "What is my voice if I strip away the world's expectations?" The forest offered no answers, only space for reflection, and slowly, with patience, the answers began to emerge. He remembered the joy he once felt in small things: the laughter of children, the warmth of sunlight on his face, the simple act of creating something with his own hands. He recalled the dreams he had abandoned, the passions he had silenced to fit the mold of what he thought he should be. And in the quiet, he made a promise to himself: to honor that voice, no matter how small, no matter how uncertain. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan's connection with himself deepened. He learned to appreciate the rhythm of nature, the steady pulse of life beyond human noise. He observed the world without judgment, listening to the whispers of the wind, the song of birds, the gentle murmur of the river. Each moment of observation became a mirror, reflecting his own mind, revealing patterns of thought he had never noticed. He realized that self-discovery was not a destination but a process, a continuous dialogue with oneself. One morning, as the sun rose through the trees, Ethan experienced a moment of clarity. He understood that silence was not emptiness. It was a canvas upon which the self could be painted. It was in quiet moments that insight blossomed, that creativity sparked, and that courage was nurtured. He understood that the external world was a reflection of the inner, and that to change how he experienced life, he first had to cultivate harmony within. Ethan began writing again, something he had abandoned years ago. Words flowed from him not as a performance for others, but as an expression of his own truth. He wrote of his fears, his dreams, his failures, and his discoveries. He wrote without judgment, without audience, without concern for recognition. The act of writing became a meditation, a conversation with the silent voice he had once ignored. One afternoon, he met an old man by the river, a traveler who had spent decades wandering the same forests. The man had a calm presence, the kind that spoke of inner peace without a single word. They talked for hours, sharing stories, and in the simplicity of that conversation, Ethan realized another truth. Connection begins with self-awareness. To truly relate to others, to inspire, to love, one must first know oneself. The quiet within was the foundation of every meaningful relationship, every genuine act, every choice that aligned with the soul. Months passed, and when Ethan finally returned to the city, he was not the same man who had left. The noise of life still existed, but it no longer dictated his inner state. He had discovered the strength of stillness, the clarity of listening, and the courage to honor his own voice. He spoke differently now, not louder or more aggressively, but with authenticity and intention. People noticed the change, not because of what he did or achieved, but because of the calm, grounded energy he carried, a reflection of the quiet he had nurtured within. Ethan's story reminds us that in a world obsessed with speed, distraction, and validation, the most radical act can be silence. It is in moments of stillness that we confront our truths, uncover our passions, and listen to the voice that has always been there. The quiet within is not a void to be feared, but a sanctuary to be embraced, a source of wisdom, courage, and creativity. And yet, discovering the quiet within is only the beginning. Life will continue to challenge, to demand, to overwhelm. Noise will return in many forms, expectations, obligations, doubts, but the difference lies in how we respond. When we have touched the silence, when we have heard the voice that lives beyond distraction, we carry with us a compass. We learn to choose actions that align with our inner truth, to speak words that matter, to live a life guided not by fear or approval, but by authenticity. Ethan learned to integrate this lesson into every aspect of his life. He pursued his work with passion, but not desperation. He nurtured relationships without losing himself. He approached challenges with patience and reflection. The quiet within became a source of resilience, a reminder that the storms of life could not uproot him if he remained rooted in self-awareness. And perhaps the most profound discovery of all was that the quiet is not static. It is dynamic, alive, and transformative. It teaches us to listen not only to ourselves, but to the world in its subtle rhythms. It shows us that wisdom often speaks softly, that courage is found in reflection, and that true strength is not loud but enduring. In the end, Ethan understood that self-discovery is less about finding something new and more about remembering what has always been within us. The quiet we fear, the silence we resist, is the space where our true selves reside. It is the voice that guides us when the world is loud, the compass that points us toward fulfillment, the sanctuary where we become whole. So, take a moment, step away from the noise, close your eyes and listen, not to the world, not to the expectations, not to the judgments, but to yourself. Hear the whispers, the long-forgotten dreams, the quiet truths. Honor them. Let them guide your steps. because the path to a meaningful life begins not with action, but with listening. The quiet within is waiting. Your voice has always been there, and when you finally hear it, you will understand that everything you were searching for outside has been quietly waiting for you inside.